We are one of billions of planets on a huge scale, and a cosmic God who bothers about this kind of human scale is not the kind of God that is compatible with a scientific view of the universe. It's a medieval view.
Firstly, Mr. Dawkins suggests the term cosmic God, and there are a couple of issues with portraying God this way. You see, theism suggests that God is outside of time, space, and matter. Therefore, there is no space, there is no massiveness, and there is no tininess to God. He is just infinite. Therefore, you can't make this argument about how a quote-unquote cosmic God cannot scientifically fit into this viewpoint that he would care about our scale of being one of billions of planets. You see, the size does not matter at all to him, and that is what Mr. Lennox will go into further in a moment. The second part I'd like to address is when Mr. Dawkins uses the religion is bad argument. This is very common in theistic-driven debates, and what it is when atheists say religion is bad, therefore God does not exist. And the way that Richard Dawkins does that here is he says, this type of cosmic God who focuses on humans cannot be according to science. Yet therefore he clearly suggests that another God who doesn't focus on us can exist. So he completely decides to ignore the actual conversation here and resort to religion is bad. Lastly, he suggests that it is a medieval viewpoint that a quote-unquote cosmic God would bother with human events. And there are many issues with this because he is no longer interested in evidence of a God or not. He is just picking which God he likes more. He's not backing this with any evidence that it is quote-unquote medieval. In fact, this is a highly supported viewpoint today. Of course, I understand that he is fighting the other side, so he wants to mock the other side, obviously, but there are other intellectual ways to approach a conversation than just saying that this is medieval. Just because medieval times believe this viewpoint does not mean that it cannot still last today. Theism claims that it is an objective truth that God exists and he is the way he is. Therefore, he is not addressing theism anymore. He is just addressing certain religions and saying these are wrong. And again, he has escaped from the actual point of the conversation, does God exist, and ran to religion is bad.
But do you think that size is the measure of importance? Incidentally, on a logarithmic scale, you're about halfway between the atom and the universe. So if God thinks in terms of logarithms, your point falls, I think.
I mean, this is in a sense an emotional argument we've come into now, and
I don't think so at all.
I want to if I were going to respect a God, it would be the kind of God the sort of God that Carl Sagan might have worshipped, not the sort of medieval God who fusses about sin, the obsession with sin and righteousness and sort of, I keep coming back to this word petty, and I stand by it.
In this second portion, Mr. Dawkins says that we're coming to an emotional argument. Now, Mr. Lennox provided a very clear and a very algorithmic response to Mr. Dawkins' algorithmic argument. So I'm not sure where he's coming to this conclusion. Mr. Dawkins says that God is way too big, therefore an algorithmic argument, and Mr. Lennox says, no, we're actually the exact middle of the entire universe, and therefore, algorithmically speaking, your point fails. So now, Mr. Dawkins decides that we're going to digress into an emotional conversation. Even though they were having a logical conversation, he was just proven wrong. Finally, now that we're having an emotional conversation with Mr. Dawkins, he decides to talk about the gods he might respect if there was one, and a couple of things he regards as petty. Carl Sagan was an astronomer who basically said that to be an atheist is to say you have compelling evidence against Judeo-Islamic and some other type of God. And there's, first of all, that's just not what atheist means. Atheist means, but you do not believe that there is a God. But second of all, Carl Sagan basically was a man who believed that there may be a God. It's very unlikely, but it's definitely not the gods that we have found. So this is what Mr. Dawkins is referring to when he says the type of God that Carl Sagan might have worshipped. It is simply just a God that we have not discovered yet, or that we have not experienced yet. It's the type of God who does not really interact with society, but rather caused all of this still, and still was a creator, but not necessarily loving, not necessarily intact. And then the second point he makes here is that, or the second thing he claims, is that righteousness and sin are petty things. Sin is an immoral act that is seen as transgressing a divine law, but at its core is an immoral act. And then righteousness is the quality of being right according to morals and just in general, like the actual justification of what you have to say. Is it right or wrong? So, sir, why are you in this debate if you're not seeking righteousness? If you're not seeking how to be right or which one is right and wrong, you're just seeking argument. And there's no value in that whatsoever. You're basically saying that, and then the other side of righteousness is obviously morality, and that's the sin side as well. So now you're saying that morality is of no value, in a sense, because it's petty, which is of little value. But this confuses me, because just a couple minutes later in the debate, you say, no, I am a human in a human society, and therefore morals are very valuable to me, even though you just called morality petty. Finally, you may be trying to say that morality is only pettiness in God's perspective. So with humans, yes, it is a very important thing, but with God, it is petty. Yet, let me ask you a question. Why then would God give us a consciousness? And what I mean by this is, why would God allow us to experience things? Everything else in the universe, as far as we know it, is just matter. And if I chop down a plant, nobody's going to be complaining because it's not a big deal. If a star gets destroyed, which stars are constantly exploding and imploding and all these things that obviously I cannot explain, all these things are happening, yet all of those things are just matter. And yet the only thing we can't quantify into matter is our own personal human consciousness and experience. So this type of God that you're saying that fusses about these petty things, sin and righteousness, well, just as Mr. Lennox said, you're in between the universe and the atom, so you're perfectly in the center of God's creation. And then now you're going to say that he just gave us a consciousness and that has no value and that has no meaning. It has very much a meaning, because that is the only thing immaterial that we can absolutely prove. Everything else in the universe is just matter. So to say that morality is petty to God is basically to say that humans are also petty to God, because you as a human in a human society, the morality is very important to you, which is reasonable, as it should be. And there is a reason that God created you for morals to be an important thing. So then, if morals are important inherently to humans, so if God has given us a drive towards morality or an understanding of morality, and as far as we can tell, we are the only thing that is immaterial, which God himself would be immaterial. So this would be an image of God situation where the image of God is projected onto humans because we have this ability to experience. And now, do we know if monkeys have consciousness or not, or any other animal for that sense? No, we don't. So we're not just going to go randomly making assumptions. What we do know is that humans do have consciousness and experiences that we cannot explain in a material sense. So therefore, God gave us this immaterial experience, this consciousness, and we're the center of his creation. And yet you are saying that humans and the things that he gave humans are not important. They're petty to him. Even though, as far as it seems, we are the closest thing to God. We are the closest reflection of God. Therefore, the center of his creation. We are the closest thing to that. So to say that morality should be petty to God is just completely, it's not a God that would fit in the scientific view of this universe, as you would like to put it. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more.